Hello and welcome to my annual trip to the TUCSON Festival of Books. I am not going to really do a big intro here. Future Ashley, you're going to have to take care of that. I'm running late and I'm super anxious and I took a Xanax, but it hasn't kicked in yet. So let's go. I don't know what she wants from me. Enjoy the festival. Make my first Scalzi panel, so in Martha Walz, there was the tiniest room possible that they tried to fit Murderbot fans in, and John Scalzi is one of the most famous sci-fi authors. What the fuck are they doing? I'm gonna wander around and burn off this energy and maybe get some food before there's lines because it's only 10 o'clock, so it's not lunchtime yet, but it's lunchtime for me. Sorry, I'm eating Hello Kitty. I forgot to show you. Here's a picture. This blood runs through my instrument. His song is in my soul. My life is there be a creeper and stealthily walk by John Scalzi and Martha Walz. Hold on. That's the line for Scalzi and Walz. I want to show you this. I didn't know we had, is that a willow tree? It looks really small for a willow, but it looks like the leaves look willowy. Tree people, what kind of tree is this? I'm gonna get closer so you can see it. What is that? Okay, bye. Hey friends, I am waiting for my author shift. I'm a little early and my venue is a 2-minute walk, so I've got my handy dandy sign, a map, and these are my authors. I've never heard of either of them, Kaira, Rouda, and Marisa, Walz. I think I've seen the cover of Marisa Walz's book, but I have not seen the cover of hers. I will put them here. Well, people are looking at me. I'll show you later, but I bought 2 books. And one of them I didn't even know existed. I'm so excited. More later.
Maybe each of you could set the stage for your book. Give us a thumbnail description and describe your most important character.
So, Good Intentions is a slow burn psychological suspense novel about a luxury event planner who becomes obsessed with a woman that she meets in a hospital waiting room on the same day that she loses her twin sister. So it's very much a story about grief and obsession and moral ambiguity, lots and lots of moral ambiguity, and just about And my main character, Katie, she's definitely the most important character in both her own life and in the book. And you just really get into her head in this book, and I did that intentionally. I wrote it in second person. So Katie is telling the entire story in this novel to her dead twin sister. So she's definitely my most important character. Is that a good thumbnail?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me? I will do it this way too. I write about what goes on beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. And in my latest book, it's called We Were Never Friends. It's about a group of sorority sisters, former sorority sisters. They went on spring break 20 years ago and something terrible happened. And so they haven't seen each other, and now, 20 years later, we find Beth, who's pretty much the protagonist. Her daughter Celeste has, out of all the world, decided to fall in love with Roxy, the queen bee's son, and they're engaged to be married. And this begins the story where Beth and Celeste, her daughter, are driving to Palm Springs to Roxy's fabulous second home. And it's the drive that Beth is driving every mile of. And of course, her daughter is so excited to be getting married to Roxy's son. And none of these women really thought they'd see each other again, but they've all been summoned to this kind of engagement reunion in the desert, eerily similar to where they went to spring break senior year, and the whole setting is. So that is kind of the setup of the book, and I say Beth is the point of view character that you see the most, but it's a multiple point of view book, so you hear from 4 of the story sisters as we go along.
Part of the story is really hard for me to talk about because if I talk about it in too much detail, it gives away the big twist at the end, which is what you mentioned earlier, Marty. And but I will tell you that something happened to me in college that just really changed my life, in some ways good, but it was just a very traumatic event that left me wondering about the person that was responsible for this event. I just became obsessed with this individual for many years, and I just wondered what kind of person would do something like this. I just had all these questions about people and their nature and their intentions, and I've thought of her often over the last 20-some years. Now I think it's been even more than that, but it all boiled down to this one question: can good people do bad things? And I always wanted to write a book about this, but I knew it was going to have to be, I was going to have to have a really solid idea about how I would execute it, because really I just had this big question, like, can good people do bad things? And I wanted it to be perfect, so I just kept waiting and thinking about it for years and years and years. And then, one night, I finished this book called The Push by Adrienne. And I was in the bath, because I read in the bath every single night, and I had been enthralled with this book from the first line. It's very dark, and it's just super morally gray, and I was super inspired by it the whole time. And when I finished the book, the ending just left me gasping and haunted, and I couldn't sleep that night. So I stayed up that entire night plotting this book. I literally did not sleep. I stayed up writing this book, mirroring that story and all those thematic questions from this traumatic event in my past with this feeling that I had been inspired by in Ashley's book, and just trying to be like, how can I tell that story and leave readers with this feeling so that they think about that question for days and days and days after. And yeah, that's how this book was born.
Kaira, your book features a cast of characters with a tangled past. What are the challenges of writing these characters and keeping everything straight as you write the book? You also go back and forth between the present and the past, so it's a little complicated in terms of how the characters all interact.
Yeah, well, and I should say, I was in a sorority college, and it's not about them, and I have to say that just in case there's anybody here. I keep on book tour, and invariably somebody would be like, and I'm like, no, it's not about you, it's not about you, it's not about you. But anyway, it's really just the notion that I'm kind of attracted to of the fact that any people in like close relationships, and then maybe join a story suddenly your sisters, and so it implies family, and what can that mean? You're likely not going to be able to book along with everybody. And in this case, these women were not friends really in the story, they just were sisters. So that was kind of fun. As far as how I keep them straight, like I said, I'm a pantser, so I kind of write from a perspective of as if they're on stage when I'm writing, and my characters, the strong ones, will try to take over the book, and the more shy ones is a character named Jamie in the book, and she's a famous cardiologist now, and she's a year younger than the rest of the women, and she's really shy too, and so I keep track of who's on stage while I'm writing, which is kind of strange, but I look down and I'm like, Jamie's hiding again, so I have to let her have her point of view, so it's really inspired. People have asked me to teach a craft class, and I'm like, I don't know that I would be the great teacher, because I would just say, sit down and write, and let all the characters start talking to you, which is super fun, so that doesn't really answer your question, but that's how I do it.
Oops. Okay, bye. I need a nap. Do you think ice cream will help? I don't think it will help. I don't think it will help. I have to go down there and wait for Alix Harrow. You guys probably can't even hear me. Maybe you could see the rings in my glasses. I'm so tired.
Which is, how much of the world have you determined before you begin writing? You've talked about finding things as you go. Alix, I'd love to start with you. Since you wrote a time loop book, I'm imagining you maybe have some charts or some way you kept track of, if you want to share.
Yeah, I feel like I always think that I know everything that I need to know by the time I start writing. I really believe that every time. Like, I don't know why at this point I do, but I'm like, I've done all my research, I know exactly how the world is gonna work, I know the plot, I have it broken into chapters, and it looks at that point really feasible, and really it's gonna be good, and then you start writing it. And immediately it falls apart, especially with world building, I feel like, because you have often figured out the bigger pieces that are important to you, but as soon as you put a character in the world, as soon as they reach for something, as soon as you're like, are there cigarettes here? Like, it forces you to ask a lot more material and granular questions that I think are just as important in some ways as those big ideas that you have about the world. And I write in the real world and not. And I think that holds true for both. Like, even in a historical world, you are responsible for building that fictional world. For this one, for The Everlasting, I started with a set of charts on the wall, and I ended up with a totally different set of charts on the wall. I'm never doing a time loop book again.
I'd love to see those original charts. Jennifer, what about you?
I never know before I start. I'm very much a write for discovery author. So like when I started this book, I knew who my sorceress was and that she had retired because of some really terrible things that had happened. I knew she was a neuromancer, that she did her magic through dreams and sleep, but then I just had to basically, kind of what Alix said, you know, like as they reach for things, as you ride around with them in the world and discover what it looks like and what sorts of things they have in their house and why it's there and how they got it there.
I think the thing that I really need to be able to start with is how the world feels. If I can't feel it around me, like if I don't know what the texture of it is, then I will seriously write 3 lines, stop for 5 minutes, write 3 lines, stop for 5 minutes, because I'm very, like, I'm visualizing constantly while I'm writing, and I'll have to keep stopping to figure out, like, I'm in the video game and I'm like, where am I? You know, like, what's around me? So I think I just have to have a basic understanding, maybe not of like the political system or the entire magic system or something, but I do need to be able to see and feel it, or I feel like I'm not in the character's body, and that just makes it impossible to take me like 5 years to write a draft that way. So I feel like those are things like I have to begin with.
It's okay if it takes you 5 years to write a draft. There are dozens of us.
Writing character to me really does start with noticing. So, this is the way I start every class, to be honest, because it's like, we're going through our lives, and you know, we can sometimes have the vectors and get to the thing and from A to B, but noticing is really where character, I think, breaks open, because there's specificity and there's unexpected discovery, new pathways, like, you know, a feeling of coming home. So we'll talk more about that, but just keep that in mind. And that's always, you know, when things can kind of feel rough for either a character or for whatever, just like life in general, just stay on the alert. What's one beautiful thing in the maelstrom, in the carnage, you know, something beautiful to notice. And there is always something, weirdly, like, spoiler alert, even in the worst of times, there is something really beautiful. What makes a character unforgettable to you? Who, like, without thinking too hard, an instant character from books, or we can go multimodal films as well. Character that you just, like, immediately instinct, you can say, this character is unforgettable to me. Tightly plotted mysteries are wonderful. We love Aristotle's Poetics, plots the thing, beginning, middle, end, first, second, third act, love it, love plot. And yes, character opens plot. Heraclitus says, character is destiny. What does that mean? What can that mean for your books? How can your characters open plot points? Who they are, their nuances, their foibles, their needs, their wants. How can they open up plot points?
Oh, I was just gonna say that a recent character in a mystery thriller that I just fell in love with because of one scene, it was from, I just forgot her name, the Nora Breen mysteries. She's
Oh,
actually an
yes.
ex-nun as well. It takes place in the 50s.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where she throws a shoe at a cop. And I was like, I'm in. And it was very
The
funny.
shoe.
Yeah.
Yes. That is, Ashley mentions another particularity, the specificity. Like Owen meaning, a little weirdness. When things can find that hand in glove, that touch point, that psychic, I could touch it, I could see it, and very often it's playing away from the general and into the specific. And very often the weird, and not just for shock jock, edgelord sake. It's like, how do we find the details that really let a scene insinuate itself into your mind forever? Or make you think, oh, I want to read on. I'm with this character. I'm investing in this character. Throwing the shoe, yeah, we got to use what we can, or whatever it is that motivates that moment. How are those places that the specific, the strength, the vulnerability, and again, it's not this like A side, B side. It can be much quieter. Text and subtext. The tiny little shadow waves, as it were. Or, in my case, this, Sister Holiday's a 33-year-old, tatted up, a mother superior makes her cover all of her tattoos right up to her jawline with a scarf, gloves on her hands in the boiling heat, 100-degree heat of New Orleans. So this character is very extreme. She's 33. She was in a post-punk band in Brooklyn, made a countercultural move to leave Brooklyn to join this convent in New Orleans for reasons you discover as you read the first book in the series. So for me, I'm a little bit more of a maximalist, but in a hard-boiled way. So it's like, one reviewer called me a maximalist minimalist because I actually love that hard-boiled, cut-to-the-bone aesthetic, but I'm a poet also, and I love what language could do, and I like how you can linger in moments and they can be either a vital clue or they could be misdirection. And this experience is a first-person narrator narrating what she sees, so her gaze is your gaze, but if she doesn't tell you something, that occlusion is also part of the mystery layer, because the clue work for me starts with point of view. How do we engineer red herrings, misdirection, sleight of hand, really character actually plays a huge role in that as I see it.
Hi. I don't know if I've ever been this physically exhausted after a festival of books before, but I am so tired. Like I'm gonna fall asleep about 3 seconds after I hit the pillow, but I have to wash my face first, and also I have to wash my volunteer t-shirt because I sweated through it all day long. I think it's like I've never been this out of shape. I have never been this old. And it's never been, well, not never, but it's rarely this hot at the Festival of Books. And I got so sweaty the whole day. I was sweaty in the morning because I was panicky and anxious. Anyway, after I calmed down, I did manage to have a really good day. And even though I didn't get all the panels that I wanted, I ended up really having some cool things happen on the panels that I didn't think I wanted to go to, including that Margot Douaihy is the coolest author, like nicest author I've met in 10 plus years I've been doing this. I mean, I told you guys to read her book like several times. I've told you to read her Sister Holiday Mystery Series, but I'm going to reiterate that you guys need to read her Sister Holiday Mystery Series. By the way, I got so excited today. You would have seen it already, but I didn't realize that there was a third book out. The last time I checked, there were only 2. And now I have number 3. And they're both signed. I got her to sign this one. And I participated in a writing workshop. And I haven't been in school in so long, and it felt so good. And also, like, when I was in school, I used to just, like, sit there and not say anything. But apparently I'm a person who participates now. Or maybe, I don't know what that was about. But let's look at the books I got. So obviously I already owned this. I got number 3. I'm actually reading number 2 next month. So good timing. And I'm very excited to have that. And then I didn't go crazy. I will stand up in a second and show you I'm wearing a t-shirt. I had to, my mom stopped by because today's my birthday. Festival of Books and my birthday are always close together, but it's pretty rare that my birthday is actually on the date of the festival, so that's fun. But anyway, my mom drove down from Phoenix and took me to dinner, and I couldn't smell myself, but I know I smelled bad because I sweat through that shirt. I had to reapply deodorant like 3 times. And so I was just like, I'm going to change this sweaty shirt. And then I put on my new shirt in the car that I bought here. Let me show you. It's a cactus made of books from my local indie stacks. Yeah, and I also bought the sticker that's the same logo that I'm probably going to put on my Kindle. And then I bought one book from Stacks because I don't have it yet. It's a novella, Two Can Play. This was originally released only on audio, only on Spotify. And I listened to like the first 3 seconds of the audiobook. And I said, no, thank you. I don't like that narrator. And then I said, I will wait until it's in print. And now it's apparently in print. Then I also bought a book called History Lessons by Zoe B. Wallbrook. And I've had this on my TBR after Kayla read it from Books and Lala. When I was scrambling to fill my author escort shifts, because that's what I do, is I escort authors to and from their panels and signings, I recognized this book cover. I didn't recognize the author's name, but I recognized this book cover, and I remembered that Kayla had read it and said it was fun. I went ahead and just bought it because I know I love a mystery, and I'm going to want to buy it. So now I have it, and I don't have to wait in line and then get her to sign it. I will already have it ready for her to sign tomorrow. So that's tomorrow. I have to bring that. I brought some books today to get signed that I already owned. I complained about this earlier. You would have seen the footage. The John Scalzi and Martha Wells panel was in this tiny little room, and like nobody got in. And I walked in and there was like 50 seats. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Why would you put John Scalzi and Martha Wells in a tiny, tiny little room? So I'm gonna have to show up at like 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, 2 hours before the panel to get in line, which is ridiculous. This woman has a TV show. Her character has a TV show on Apple TV. Get her a big room. And it's John Scalzi. Like, come on. That's all I have to say about today. I hopefully will have more to say tomorrow. I do have some money to spend. I budgeted myself to a certain amount of money for books and goodies, and I have not reached that budget yet. I will probably buy more books tomorrow, but I was so tired today. I just can't. Oh, what did I eat? Okay, so I ate the bao buns. I showed you those, the red bean and the pork. And actually, I liked the pork better. In the past, when I've had red bean buns, they've had less filling and more bun. And there was just too much filling inside of it for me. I ended up having to scrape a lot of it out and then just eating the outside with like a little bit of the red bean paste because it was so thick and pasty. It was just too much. But the pork was perfect. The Japanese style ground pork was perfect. And then what else did I have? Oh, I had my green tea latte, my strawberry matcha. And then I just bought a protein bar because I knew I was going to go to dinner with my mom. And then dinner with my mom, I forgot to film that. She doesn't like being on camera anyway, so it's fine. But we had these delicious shoestring garlic truffle French fries. And then I had a Philly cheesesteak, which it wasn't a Philly cheesesteak. They should really not call it that. There was like no cheese on it whatsoever. And I mean, it was good. They had it like marinated in this jalapeno sauce, and it had green chilies, roasted green chilies, and not the little ones, like big ones. And it also had braised onions. So that was delicious, but it wasn't a cheesesteak. It was good, but it wasn't a cheesesteak. But now I am so tired. I could literally put my head down right in front of me and I could just fall asleep, but I still have to wait for my laundry to be done because I have to hang up my shirt to dry so I'm not wearing a wet shirt tomorrow. And also, I have to wash my face and scoop the cat litter, and then I can pass out. Anyway, that's what I've got for you. Hopefully, I will be better at this whole thing tomorrow. Good night. Hi. I'm so tired and I'm so sore. Also, I'm so mad I waited in the drive-thru for this coffee. It's a caramel latte, and I forgot to say oat milk. So this is regular milk. It's gonna do things to me. So I have to sit here and drink just enough to get some caffeine in me before I head out. But also I don't want to be carrying 2 drinks because I can't have my regular backpack with me that holds my water bottle. It's just this whole thing. It's a mess. Anyway, I just wanted to check in. It's day 2. Next time you see me, I'll either be in line for Scalzi or I'll be in the Scalzi panel with Martha Wells. Wish me luck. I'm here an hour and a half early. This is already the line for Scalzi and Wells. I'm an hour and a half early. He's a piece of work.
Before I begin with the questions, I will read the blurb just to for Rotten to the Core, right? So, we're happy that you have joined 3 powerhouse authors as they explain how they craft narratives where hard-won stability crumbles and characters face impossible choices. They will explore the mechanics of world building, the psychology of survival, and the narrative tension that comes from watching everything unravel. The tagline here is crumbling stability, impossible choices. I mean, these are certainly all of you stock and trade, right? Through lines. And yet somehow none of you are given to writing grimdark. Also, thank you. Perhaps you can tell us a little about how you see the tension between impossible choices and crumbling stability, watching everything unravel, and hope and perseverance, sort of pushing against that. And this prompts me to think of one of sci-fi's most classic tropes, which is the human spirit in the face of seemingly overwhelming and overwhelmingly weird, maybe, opposition. So how do you see your protagonists in that role? I mean, is this even a way that you're thinking about it?
Fine. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think that the two things, the crumbling stability and impossible choices, are kind of intrinsically tied together. For me, this book, Fallen City in particular, I think is a good example of that, my main characters kind of accidentally start a war, and they're not the best candidates, like, at all, as leaders, and yet they are kind of forced into this role where, they think they're doing good and they have this, like, noble cause, and they wind up committing the same atrocities as everyone who came before them. So the book is kind of an exploration of that process unfolding. It's a duology, and the second book comes out at the end of this year, and it kind of completes that arc. It's like not spoilery or anything, but completes that arc of kind of like the descent and self-acceptance of, the impossible choices, the kind of question of, is there any good? Is there any hope? I think especially right now in the world, we're asking those questions, and we also always are. And so, I feel like Fallen City is very much about that.
I didn't realize what a depressing topic this was. I guess I should have read the instructions before I came here. Yeah, wearing black. I think my Witch King and Queen Demon are my most recent books, and they really lean into this topic. And I think mine are a bit similar, where we have a group of people who end up leading the resistance and the, I hesitate to call it a rebellion, because I feel like you have to have a rebellion against a government that you had some sort of ownership over in the first place, as opposed to this, which is this group of civilizations were colonized by another force, and what they're doing is basically fighting an invasion. I wanted to show that through a longer lens, to show not only the fight against it, but the what happened afterward, and the aftermath of trying to rebuild the world, and also what you would do to save what you had rebuilt. So there's a lot of murder in it, And it's very violent. I said yesterday in the panel, it's a lot less violent than my first draft. I wrote it during 2020, and I was, it was just, let's kill all those people. So, part of it is basically the exercise of restraint, and it's basically the person who's the architect of the resistance tries to leave routes for the people who aren't directly responsible for it but are participating to change their minds. So he's got a very optimistic view of what the future could be, and he's trying to basically guide them in that direction. And then I have my main viewpoint character, who's an embodied demon, and he is just like, well, let's just kill all these people. So part of it is him changing over time, and part of it is just the justified rage about what's happening.
So I once wrote in one of my books what is basically my philosophy of humans, which is humans will absolutely do the right thing after they've tried every single other thing. Which is technically optimistic. But it takes a long time to get there. And if you read the Old Man's War Stories or the Interdependency series or any of those books, you will kind of see that philosophy. And there are two reasons for that. One, I actually do believe that humans will do the right thing eventually, but oh boy, we are a species of procrastinators. We will not clean up our room until we do everything else. But the other thing is that from a practical point of view, it would be very, very boring for all of you if all of our people were nice and the universe was very tidy, right? The drama of the universe is falling apart, the crucibles that we put the characters through, that's all super interesting. People often come up to me and they're like, oh man, I would love to live in your Interdependency series, or I would love to live in the Old Man's War series. I'm like, why? Look, you get those cool bodies. You get the cool bodies because you're gonna die. It's like, did you not read the books? Did you just get a ChatGPT summation? Because I gotta tell you, I don't want to live there, and I wrote the damn thing. But that's the tension, right? That is the tension of a really fun book to read is not necessarily a really great universe to live in. And the things that we do to our characters, such terrible things. Are we monsters? Yes.
Prominent in all of your work, but not quite the same ways.
Yeah.
And we don't maybe want to live that every day, as you just pointed out. And yet, I mean, this is some blood-soaked stuff here, folks. So, do go on. Yeah. And I'm thinking, by the way, of like, say, collective versus individual violence. I know there's tensions there. And you all think about this, I know.
Why don't you start?
Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of individual violence and collective violence in my books. It's really funny sometimes because I've had people say, because of my name, that made them think of a little grandma woman. And the assumption when I started out that I must be writing either children's books or something really sweet and things like that. And I actually had somebody try to, when I was going to be on a panel about fight scenes at a convention, several years ago, and before Murderbot, and one of the other panelists tried to get me to leave because he didn't think I would be able to do the panel.
Oh my God. Who was this so I can kill them?
I'm not gonna name names, but so it was really interesting. And I didn't leave, obviously, and don't know why my books are so violent. Well, I kind of do right now, but just, I think I like to write about characters who are in desperate situations, but who are not, they can resist it. They're equal to the challenge, I guess is one way to put it. I've always really disliked books that, and not for any stylistic reason or anything, where the characters were just trapped and could not get out of their situation and could not fight their situation. It feels really claustrophobic to me. I think it feels too much like reality. And I'd rather write about people who, and read and watch people on TV or movies who, whatever is coming after them, they are able to meet. I don't like to watch, that's kind of why I don't prefer a lot of horror. Sinners is one of the first horror movies I've really completely enjoyed in a long time, because there were people who were able to fight back. And I just really hate horror where it's some normal person just going along and gets attacked and you see them hurt and killed and you're just like, what? I can see that on the news. Why am I watching this? And so I think I've always been inclined to characters who are capable of violence and who are willing to defend themselves and defend others without a lot of maybe moralizing about it. Is it moral, for us to kill this person? Well, that person's trying to kill you. And especially in this situation, it's not like you can call anybody who's gonna come help you. So I tend to like to write that. So possibly I'm an inherently violent person.
I didn't realize how much I enjoyed writing violence until I wrote my debut. My debut book is Sky in the Deep. It's a Viking-inspired fantasy. And there's a lot of battle and blood, and that was the first project that I'd ever worked on like that, and I found it so invigorating. As someone who's very sensitive to violence, and as a person, it's kind of strange. And was definitely a surprise to me, but I think, the difference between that individualized violence versus the collective violence, it's that in particular is very fascinating to me, because I feel like my characters reflect something that I often, maybe not often think about, but it's kind of like this thread in my mind that I think all of us are capable of a lot more individual violence than we're comfortable admitting to ourselves. I think I could absolutely kill someone if I really felt like I needed to, I'm not gonna go out and fight, don't worry. I'm not gonna go back to your hotel and murder you. But I think we're very uncomfortable with this idea that oh, I could never, whatever. And I really started thinking about that a lot after Sky in the Deep came out, because readers would be like, oh my God, I would just totally die in this world. I would never be able to survive, and it's so crazy, and whatever. And I'm like, but I think more of us could than we think. But on the other hand, collective violence is almost this curse or cycle that is just, that shouldn't be, right? I feel like it shouldn't be. This thing that we have not evolved out of as humanity yet, we just keep kind of returning to again and again. And I think that the tension between those two things is like thinking about space to me, and just endlessly fascinating, frustrating. Yeah, that's all.
So there's a reason that there's the phrase sex and violence, right? Both are incredibly seductive things. And everybody feels like they have the capacity for it one way or the other. And one of the things that's really interesting as a writer is finding the balance of how you portray, sex, but this is not that panel, but also violence, because violence is seductive, violence is great on the page, but violence without consequence is just, it's just pornography. And that's the real problem, is that I, as a writer, and I assume most writers do keep an eye on, yes, you can have some, very buffed out guy there, shooting this in, huge gun, just mowing down rows and rows and rows of aliens. But if there's no consequence to the violence, if there's no reason for the violence, if there's no context for the violence, then it doesn't matter. And for me, one of the things that I try to do for all of my work is I don't shy away from violence. Anybody who has read the Old Man's War series knows that for sure. But there are always consequences to the violence. There's a scene in Old Man's War, it's not a spoiler because it's been 20 years. If you haven't read it, that's on you. Where they're fighting aliens, and the aliens are 1 inch tall. And you would think that the aliens who are 1 inch tall are just gonna get squashed. And in fact, they do get squashed, but they also have advantages because they're too small to hit out in space. It's really hard to track a spaceship that's this big. But the thing is so at one point or another, our hero, in order to go to the battle, literally just stomps into the city like Godzilla and starts squishing people, right? And as he's doing it, he's basically crying because he's realizing what he literally has become the monster. And that these are not just little video game sprites that he's squashing, but they are actual people. And this is I think is really important because we are currently seeing the consequences of leadership that does not think violence has consequence. Mm-hmm. It fucking has consequence. And we are going to be paying for it for a very long time. So when I write violence, when I write it, I make sure that whatever I'm doing, that the violence is not the end of the discussion, but it is part of what continues.
Because I have an illustration and film background, I feel like generally I always start with the sketch. So as Kate mentioned, it was a mermaid. And everybody, how many people know what mermaid even is? Oh, I see some hands shoot up. Okay, good. So for those who don't know, it's mostly in an online celebration of mer people. And so you're gonna see a lot of illustrators and fan artists draw pictures of merfolk. People are writing drowels of merfolk. And a lot of cosplayers and professional aquatic performers are also doing their thing during May. And I've always been fascinated by mer people, so I was like, oh, I'm so busy, I'm not gonna have any time to draw anything for Mermaid this year. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh crap, there's the idea. So from this picture I had of a merman sharing the kiss through the glass with their 1910s dressed lover on the other side, all of a sudden the questions were able to sort of germinate from there about how did they get there? Why is he dressed like that? Oh my God, they're queer. And then, it was following a breadcrumb trail to the cast of characters that would really help these two hybrids sort of find unification through the glass.
So I am the only author on this panel, I think, who does not have any background in illustration. If I were to start with sketches, you would have very ugly little stick figures with a sword, a cat dragon.
She did draw a very cute cat dragon in my book, though, so...
I practiced that one. So for me, I guess really where my stories start is two things. One is just a really high-level concept, and the second is the character. And by concept, I mean, so the Teller of Small Fortunes, the small fortunes, I was thinking of, I've always loved classic fantasy, and a lot of these classic fantasy books, they start with epic prophecies about, the farm boy who's going to save the kingdom, or, the hero who's going to end up defeating the Dark Lord. And I love those books, but I kind of, for cozy fantasy, wanted to downscale those things into a kind of everyday sort of prophecy. And so there's this vague notion I had of a prophetess or a seer or a fortune teller who tells only small, inconsequential, everyday fortunes, like on Wednesday it's gonna rain, or like that cow is going to like kick you in the knee, that kind of thing. And similarly in Keeper of Magical Things, it's kind of taking one of those big epic fantasy tropes of the magical artifacts, the One Ring of Power, Excalibur, these enchanted swords, and downscaling it. And so you've got these magical artifacts. I thought it'd be really fun to have these small everyday ones that are kind of really unimportant, and the Guild of Mages is like, no, those go in the broom closet and like not in our vaults. And so then you've got chatty teapots and like, you know, very minorly flaming swords and boxes that summon cats out of thin air.
A cold stone and a hot stone, and if you put them in the bath, it's the right temperature.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And so those were the kind of the germs of the concepts. And then once I had those, it was, all right, who are the characters I'm going to care about, and kind of feel out the story from there. What do they want? What is standing in the way of what they want? What relationships do they form? And the world is just kind of, my world building is very vibes-based, shall we say.
Okay, well, you know, so certainly if you'd ask me this question about A Course of Dragons, my first series, I probably couldn't have given you a single answer. In fact, I don't think I ever did give a consistent answer to this question, because, you know, that was developed over decades. It was, you know, not one thing. But if I'm being really honest with myself about where my sparks typically come from, I would have to say spite. Because invariably there is something about the genre that I adore and love that pisses me off. And then I will have to address it. In this particular case, it was not even something about the fantasy that pissed me off, it was something about Star Wars. This is how my weird brain works.
And that thing was?
Well, there is a thing called, a trope called orange and blue morality. And orange and blue morality is the idea that there are moral systems out there in the world that are not good and evil and black and white. And in the case of Star Wars, it's a wonderful example of this, because the original philosophies upon which George Lucas based the Force were orange and blue morality. In Taoist philosophy, the light and dark is not good and evil. And so I wanted to address that sort of thing. What happens when you take something that is orange and blue morality and you force it into a this is good and this is evil paradigm? So I knew I wanted to do that, and I decided that I wanted to do that with chaos and order, which is a much beloved trope in fantasy, and certainly many amazing authors have done stuff with it, but they usually do make it good and evil. And I was like, okay, well, I think I'm gonna have order be about, universal laws and architecture and structure and death, because what's more orderly than death? And I'm gonna, that comes under order too. And by the same token, chaos is, plants and wildness and insanity and life. And in both cases, they are not good or evil. And so this is a world that is in flux over a 2,000-year cycle between absolute order and absolute chaos. And each time it's an extinction event. You can't survive absolute order and you can't survive absolute chaos, at least not sane. Unfortunately, these guys have forgotten all about that. So they don't realize that they're heading towards the chaos arc. And that's the book. So.
Yes.
Riley is also like a very complicated character.
Yeah, I mean, I've never read a review that didn't say that all the people in the book were really unpleasant and they didn't like any of them, but they couldn't stop reading. It's just like, well, that's just like one life, isn't it? Just loathing every minute, but you carry on. But I think so with Riley, circumstances shape you, of course, in every possible way. And she's been forced into a position where she has left is her brother, so she makes all her choices are geared towards protecting him, which means that some of them are very questionable. But I think it's a sort of, it's my most tender book as well, because so when I was writing this book, I got halfway through, and then I had to put it down when my mother came home for the last time. And afterwards, not only could I not pick it up again, but I never thought I'd write again, actually. It seemed impossible that I could, ever. Because, you know, if you can't selectively open the door. If you open the door, you can't control what comes through. And I was feeling so much, and so I showed up every day. I thought, if I just show up, because one of the last things my mother said to me was, don't stop writing, so no pressure. So I just showed up at my desk, and I just sat, I thought, if I keep coming here, it was just typing, you know, it's just typing. I was just sitting there typing. It was like hideous. And when that happens, you feel like there's a sort of existential fear. But one day, it sort of started to come back to me. But what I was worried about was that I was feeling so much that I wouldn't be able to tell the story, because the job is not to tell my story. I don't want to put all of this feeling on the page. I want to tell the story that it's sort of beyond, outside and transcends my experience. Unfortunately, it's a sort of weird balance of using your left and right brain, where you have to pull everything from your desk, but also organise it so it's not about you. You know, there's that Iris Murdoch quote about bad writing is full of the fumes of personality, which I think is so bitchy, but great. I don't know if I can do this, even if I'm sort of able to kind of sort of slightly get back into writing again. I don't know if I can do this because my feelings are overbalancing the narrative. But I found a way, I hope, to do it, which is that I put all of my love and my grief into this relationship between this brother and sister. Because I don't have a brother, I've never lived in a Lord of the Flies style community in an abandoned fairground, you know. But I was able to put those feelings in and sort of, you know, have them sort of transformed and catalyzed into that relationship, which is, and I was so grateful that, you know, that I could, because I couldn't see a way out of the problem. But then I found it, which is, you know, making the love and grief sort of transform into writing Oliver's love and grief.
And then Rachel, you also have a sibling relationship kind of at the heart of this book. Could you talk a little bit about like how that shapes your story?
Yeah, so Cleo is the youngest of three sisters, and I have two siblings. I'm the middle child.
You can't tell.
So yeah. But I think it was important for her to have. And so my dad is one of 8, and my mom is one of 7. So God. I'm very exposed to a bunch of different sibling dynamics. And my dad's the oldest, and then it's 6 sisters and a brother. And then for my mom, on my mom's side, it's 3 brothers and then 4 sisters. So a lot of complicated sibling dynamics that I've been exposed to growing up. And I think having 2 siblings is interesting. And a lot of what I wanted to explore in this book is perception and memory, and truth in memory. Because we can grow up in the same household and have radically different experiences. And I don't know, I feel like everybody's experienced this, where you're talking to somebody, it could be like an elementary school friend, your sibling, whatever, and you're like, remember that thing? And they're like, no, that's not what happened. Yeah. And their version of events is totally different than yours, and you're like, what? Like, it just like, it's such a mind-blowing, strange, surreal experience. And I wanted to have that in a book that is a supernatural story. And it's like, okay, well, what's real and what's not real, and what happened and what didn't happen. And I think having 2 siblings is important, because you always, having one sibling, because my husband has 1 sister, and if they remember something differently, there's no third party to break the tie, you know what I mean? And so 3 seemed like a good amount, an odd number, not too many characters. And then I think it was easy for me to have the eldest child, Vida, who's the oldest, is very much the eldest daughter, very uptight, very control freak, a little bit no fun. And then Daphne, who's the middle child, is the peacemaker and just wants everybody to be not have any drama. And then Cleo's the youngest, and she's like chaos, and she's very bratty. And so it was important to me to have that kind of balance in this particular narrative and the theme that I was trying to explore.
So interesting. So because about that thing about memory and the way we all reflect things back differently, I was reading this thing about how each child has different parents.
Yeah.
Which is because the first child has a completely different kind of experience with their parents. The middle one will, or the third one. So not only are their memories different, but the family that they recall is completely different. That's so gripping.
And that's something that I wanted to touch on too, because they lose their mother, and the older 2 siblings had a different experience with their mother than Cleo did as the youngest. And their father, again, kind of babies Cleo, and she's sort of treated differently. And it's just, I wanted to explore that complexity that I think it can be really painful and really fraught, but really subtle, and something that we probably should sit down and think about and be okay, well, my experience was different. And my sister was 9 years younger than me, so my brother is 14 months older, and then we have a big gap. And my sister growing up, my mom was over it by then. So my sister, we had to take our vitamins and drink milk every night and go to religious ed. And my sister just do whatever she wanted and had a completely different childhood. So I think about, for me, that's kind of the extreme case of that, where I think about it a lot. And but she was also lonely because I grew up with my brother, so I had a friend built in. And so it's just an interesting thing where it's all right, we feel like in our family it should be really close, but not necessarily. And families can be really, really tricky, and it can be really, and I kind of explore this in Black Sheep, which is 2 books before this, but there's a lot of shame around having a family that's anything but perfect, where you're oh, my family's a little complicated, and it's gonna take some explaining. It's not, and all families are complicated, but I think some are just all right, when you meet somebody and they're oh, so are you close with your family? And you're do you have 45 minutes at least? Because I got that to do. So I think in a lot of my books I'm trying to exploring shame and the relationship with shame. So that was a big part of that.
It's amazing because even if your family looks to other people like a sort of social acceptable family, the shame also comes from feeling vulnerable. No one can make you as angry or as exposed or as embarrassed as your family.
Or hurt.
Exactly, So it's a kind of it's such a lot of pressure on these very fragile bonds,
Yeah.
And it sounds so we're both dealing with sort of missing parents in a way.
Yeah, or just a complicated, from Cleo, her mother's gone.
Yes.
And so she's trying to connect with this book that her mother wrote that may or may not be true.
Yeah.
And so again, the relationship with truth, but I think we're never really gonna fully know another human being, but especially our parents, because they were full. I think there's always a time in our life where we realize our parents are people, where you're oh, you're not just mom, you're Suzanne. You lived a whole life before, and you're living a whole life now that I'm not, and I'm never gonna fully know you or understand your choices or what your experience was like.
And yet, were you the first person I ever knew?
Yeah, I'm here because of you. I didn't ask to be here, but here I am.
That's so interesting. Yeah, God, the Peter Pan thing was interesting as well. So have you read Peter Pan recently?
Not recently.
Has anyone read Peter Pan at all?
Yes.
That is not a book for children. So I'm just thinking about this because also there are three darlings as well.
Yeah.
and it just, there's so much resonance between it. But
why Peter Pan for you? Like what?
well, it was, I mean, if thinking about death, then the epigram at the beginning of the book is childhood is the kingdom where nobody dies. But what you come to realise is that it's obvious, and I think this is built into the book, is that actually without death there are certain things you can't do. For instance, you can't have evolution without death. Species cannot evolve, like nature can't move forward, we can't adjust, you know, as a species, and no species can adjust without, you know, making way for the next generation. But also there's a sort of, it's not just about escaping death, but there's a sort of mindset which I was thinking, this really reminds me of something. There's a feeling in the book. And what it reminded me of was a cult. So the CIA has really good guidelines, bullet points on what constitutes a cult, and as distinct from a religion, right? One of them is, you know, charismatic leader, tick. Another one is separating your recruits from their family and lives. Peter Pan certainly does that. And there's also the sense of mystery, right? Which is the nowhere children have. They have a secret sort of system of belief, which sort of a blood worshipping cult. You'll get there. The thing is, a religion can be explained to a person in like a paragraph. There are no levels that you have to ascend to be able to access the secret knowledge. Whereas in, say, Scientology, you have to, you know, you've got to go through and be admitted to the you know, the upper enclaves of information and knowledge. So I thought that was really interesting, and it just not wanting to grow up is also not wanting to die, but not wanting to die means you can, or not being able to, or running away from that so hard means you'll never grow up. And I think the fame thing as well is, they say that you stop evolving as a person when you become an addict or when you become famous, and that's when your personality gets arrested, stuck in place. And you know, Leaf Winham, who's this charismatic movie star who kills people, you know, there's a sort of cult-like attitude towards him as well, but as I was saying earlier, this adulation and this reluctance, like, we've had a lot of it in recent times, you know, things coming to light about people whose art meant a lot to us. And it's heartbreaking, you know, because you don't want to believe it. And there's a moment when Adam, who's fallen in love with him, comes to understand what he is, and the police come and sort of like, they clearly know what's going on, and then they just go away again, and he realizes that no one's ever going to hold him accountable. But his reluctance to believe that, even though it's kind of staring him in the face, is something I could really readily identify with, because you would do anything not to have your idols topple from a pedestal, almost anything. And you know, and that becomes an almost institutionalized thing where nobody will hold anyone accountable. It's this culture of impunity. But yeah, so Peter Pan actually reached out in lots of weird threads that I didn't expect. And it's obviously, there's lots of Lord of the Flies there as well, because children should not have to govern themselves. They should be looked after by people who know what they're doing. Their brains aren't formed. You know, that any society that's enclosed and shut away from the rest of the world will probably end up, you know, collapsing in on itself anyway. But particularly if it's children, because they don't, you know, they're not grown up. They don't know things. Somebody should be looking after them. They shouldn't have to be looking after themselves. So it seems like a great kind of shameful thing, you know, the neglect, you know.
I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was a big reader. My mom would walk us to the library every week and get a big stack of books. And I loved Ramona Quimby. Yes, I love it when I say her name and everyone nods. Ramona Quimby. I love those stories. And so I remember sort of carrying one of those books into school, and I looked at the book cover and I realized there was a name on the book that was not Ramona Quimby. And I thought, who is this Beverly Cleary character? What is her name doing on this book, my favorite book? And I sort of worked out for myself, this is the person who created the stories. Well, that's kind of cool. So there are people who create the stories I love. Well, I'm a people. maybe I could try. And so I tried to write a Ramona Quimby story. Now we call that fan fiction now, but then we didn't have that term. I didn't know it. It was theft, is what it was. So my first creative act was also one of crime. So I really shouldn't have been surprised when I was in the mystery group. Right? Ramona Quimby, you know, Judy Blume, you know, like all the favorites. But I do remember that I read Agatha Christie at age like 10 or 11. It was the first book for adults that I ever picked up at the library because I had been told to go up and check out the adult section because I had read everything in the children's section. I was 10, and my mom was up there, so I knew I was going to get in trouble. So I just like ducked into the first room on the second floor, and it was the mystery room. So Agatha Christie and Mary Higgins Clark are the two that really stuck with me.
Zoe?
Sure. So in my case, in terms of what influenced me as a child, and for starting with childhood, Roald Dahl. I loved Roald Dahl. And then as I got older, you know, I read widely. I used to make it a point a while ago to read, you know, every book that was a finalist for the Booker Prize or things like that. And then for mysteries, I think what got me thinking that I could write my own mystery was Ellie Griffiths had a series with an archaeology professor who's a woman who solves mysteries. And that was the first time, as myself a woman professor, where I saw a believable woman professor. And I was like, oh, I could do that again. That is my, like, I could do that moment. So things like that, reading kind of mysteries like that. But then in terms of in general, like, when the chips are down and I need comfort reading, I read P.G. Wodehouse. So I love British, I like the grandfather of British wit. I tend to read a lot of humorous writing.
Are you an archaeology professor?
I am not an archaeology professor. I promise.
What are you? What kind of
I'm a professor. I'm a humanities professor.
Oh, humanities.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll talk about my aha adult moment, which was, you know, I was an MFA student. I thought that literary fiction was the only type of book that I should be reading and writing, and so for a long time that was really all I was reading and writing. And it wasn't until I had the gateway experience with Gillian Flynn. Sorry, I should know that. I think I knew that before. Gone Girl. And then I had the gateway experience with Emily Henry, romance, and I honestly did not even realize how much I needed to widen my reading scope until those aha moments, because I think that I thought that I was trying to prove that I was some smart lady who, you know, I'm a very bubbly personality. I laugh at everything. I read easiest laugh. You can tell me the stupidest joke and I throw my head back.
Reed's gonna love you.
And I think
best audience, yeah.
I think maybe because of that I always was trying so hard to prove that I was also intelligent. And I think, you know, it's like, I'm gonna write these books that are gonna get me on NPR someday, and I'm gonna tell Terry Gross some really smart thing, and then people are gonna listen to it, and be so impressed with me. And I don't know, I just had it in my head that was what I should be doing. And finally, I widened my reading scope. And if there's one thing that I could tell any aspiring author out there is, yes, read in your genre, but also, oh my God, read every genre. Because you don't know what you like until you've read it. And it was so narrow-minded of me all those years. And I reread it, but I also was probably not ready to get published in my 30s and 20s. And honestly, when you said, you know, you admire the tenacity, I am so happy those books are in my drawer.
So are we.
So it's fine. I'm very happy that I get to have a debut with a book that I absolutely love, and it's like the book of my heart. But those were my aha moments in my
good day today, but also I planned, it was like no planning at all went into my schedule, so things were just very chaotic and I didn't get a lot of books signed that I brought with me to get signed. I went to a panel with Jenn, Lyons, Venessa, Vida, Kelley, and who was the third person? And oh, Julie Leong. And I wanted signatures from all of them, and they didn't even have that long of lines, and I didn't even have time to wait in line, so I brought those books and carried them with me all day for nothing. But it was still a fun panel, as you would have seen. They were pretty good. By the way, commentary. Firstly, you saw the footage of Catriona Ward, who goes by Kat, I guess, and Rachel Harrison. That panel was really good. I mostly came away, Lindsay and I were sitting there like, Catriona Ward is so smart, oh my God. Like you can literally see, you can see her thinking with her body. And she was just like clearly like so, you know, on a different plane of existence from the rest of us. Also, she was really nice. So that was really fun. And then my last panel of the weekend, you guys only saw the beginning of it. After that, so the moderator, which, you know, their job is to moderate, to ask questions, to encourage conversation, and to keep order, right? That's the job of a moderator. And this guy, I'm not going to say his name, you know, you could probably find him though, if you wanted to. Sorry to all the people on my text thread who are watching this. I already told you most of this. So it was a panel with Tiffany, Crum, Zoe Wallbrook, and someone I'd never heard of, but I liked her a lot. Her name was Rader-Day, and they were all women crime authors. This guy, they chose him to be the moderator because he also writes crime, but he's not that successful, even though he was very fond of telling everyone his entire biography, and he tried to make it sound as good as possible. I mean, I can't ever tell with those types of people if they really think they're successful or they just want to make themselves seem successful to other people. It could go either way. With this guy, I think it was definitely on one side of the line. So anyway, after I took that clip, he started the panel by saying, we're only going to do like 15 minutes of questions from me because I think that the audience asks better questions than I could. Well, that was a lie. Because the reason that he wanted the audience to ask questions is because if he's asking a question of the panelists, then he doesn't have a reason to answer a question. This guy decided he was a panelist, like 30% into the panel. He started answering questions like he was a panelist. And you could see the room, which was mostly full of women, and the women panelists. We were like all having the same thoughts, every single one of us. And it got to a point where he started talking once and he asked a question and like three people were like, no, you're the moderator. Don't answer that. We're not here to see. I mean, the sentiment was, we're not here to see you. We don't care what you have to say. We don't even know who you are. And he just kept inserting himself. It was truly wild. I have never seen a moderator overstep like that. I've been to so many panels at this festival over the years, escorting authors and not. And a moderator, like the usual hang up with moderators is that they're awkward. They're nervous. They don't know how to work the room. They don't know how to ask a question. Like a truly great moderator is a rare find, and that's fine. But this guy didn't even understand the assignment. And then there was one point, he kept trying to equate himself with Rader-Day because they're both veteran authors. And he started talking, the question was about a debut, something about, because Tiffany Crum and Zoe Wallbrook were both debut authors. So somebody was asking them about their like debut experience or something like that. Or maybe there was a question about editing. He pipes in and he starts talking about the debut experience. And finally, like, Rader-Day had enough, and she just interrupts him, and she goes, read. They know. They have 2 published books right here. It was mansplaining to a T. And he just kept inserting himself. And it was insane. And everybody was too polite at first to say anything. And then, like, there was some feedback. The thing that really killed me, though, the topper on the cake, aside from that whole moderator trying to become a panelist thing and the audience and the panelists being like, what the fuck are you doing? Is that I was waiting in line and there weren't very many people in line because it was the end of the day. And I don't know, there just weren't that many people in the audience. The 4 o'clock panel on Sunday, the last day of the festival, they're always, unless you're like uber famous, that they're always under attended. So I was really close to the line and he saunters on up to insert himself into the action again. And he starts asking one of the volunteers that was around me while I was waiting for the authors to show up. And I hear him go, so it's just the authors that are doing the signing? Implying like he thought he should be signing too. Oh, wait, sorry. He said, so it's just the panelists doing the signing. And I'm like, dude, no. Like, you did not understand the assignment. This was not about you at all. Take yourself out of the equation, you egomaniac. It was completely wild. I don't even. So I guess I'll go backwards. That was Zoe Wallbrook's debut is a cozy-ish mystery about a professor, because she's a professor, so she knows what it's like to, you know, write that, whose colleague is missing. And, oh, I have to tell you about her signature. Whose colleague is missing and, who is murdered. And the serial killer, I guess, is a serial killer, or the killer starts to believe that she's involved with this guy somehow, and he starts, like, targeting her. So she has to figure out what they had in common and what's going on. Anyway, so I told her, I was like, you guys are heroes for putting up with that. And then she just asked me, she goes, have you ever read Rebecca Solnit's essay, Men Explain Things to Me? And I said, yes, I have. And then she was like, can I write a message in your book? Do you care if I just don't do a signature if there's a message? And I said, sure. So she writes, Dear Ashley, thank you so much for your support and feminist solidarity. I hope you enjoy meeting Daphne, who's the main character. Anyway, I thought that was funny. Like, there was just this collective understanding of all the women in the room, like, oh my God, this guy. And then Tiffany Crum, I'm really excited to read this actually after her panel. And then I did end up buying Vigil by George Saunders. I went into the Stax Book Club tent, which is our local indie, to buy Julie Leong's book, but they were sold out of it. So I ended up with this, and I'm glad. I actually read the first 2 pages while I was waiting for a panel, and I really like the writing style. So this is the perfect length for a literary fiction. And then I got a book club bookmark, and then I bought another one of these because this morning Pippin ate mine that I bought yesterday. So I got to put this somewhere he won't get to it. And then Katrina Ward and Rachel Harrison were on a panel by themselves, and they were so cool. I already said that. I got Black Sheep signed by Rachel, and I got Katrina Ward to sign my copy of Last House on Needless Street. And I asked her a question. I asked her about the cat narrator, and she said, oh, that's because this is my fuck you book. So I guess what that means, she kind of has a rambling style, which I appreciate as somebody who has a rambling style. But I think what she meant, even though she never fully, like, literally explained it, was that her second novel, she goes, well, my second novel, I didn't know it was possible to sell negative copies. So this was her last hurrah. So she just put in a bunch of stuff she didn't think would sell, or that she could get an editor to bite on. And then, ironically, this is the book that made her break out. So go for it, I guess. She was really cool. And she drew me a cat. And then I have this bookmark. I did get into Scalzi and Martha Wells. That panel was very good. Adrienne Young was also on the panel, as you saw, and they actually all worked really well together as a panel, and it was really fun, even though I'm not a fan of Adrienne Young's writing style. She's a really cool person, and she was a good panelist. I don't personally like her writing style, so no shade to her. But I had to leave to go to pick up authors to escort. That was Jenn, Lyons, and Venessa, Vida, Kelley, and Julie Leong. So I gave Lindsay my books to sign. So she got Martha Wells to sign my copy of Network Effect, which is my favorite Murder Brat book. And then I bought 2 new copies of Fuzzy Nation, which is my favorite Scalzi, and then Old Man's War. I bought these weeks ago. for him to sign. Also, I just want to reread in these copies, not in my mass make. I just can't stand, I can't stand the experience of reading a mass market for the most part. Sometimes I can, but it's just too small. It's too small and it hurts my hands. So he signed it. It just says enjoy. And then actually Lindsay brought this same book and she was like, how are we going to tell them apart? And I was like, I'll write my name in it. So I wrote my name. I said Ashley's book, not Lindsay's. And I was like, at the time I was doing it, I was like, this could be an interesting experiment. In 10 years, will I remember why I wrote that? So we'll see. 10 years from now, I'll check in with you. And then on this one, he actually wrote, look, fuzzies. And his he knows, I told people this already, but he knows how to work a room. He had his own rules for questions, and they were great rules. They were like all the things that make people asking questions at a panel annoying. He was like, don't do that. Anyway, and when somebody did it, like 5 minutes later, he was like, nope, come on. It was really funny. So that was all my festival stuff. I got these books signed that I already owned, which was most of them. So, huzzah me. These ones. And then, even though I carried around a lot more than that, and then at the festival, I've got all the books I bought here. I actually didn't buy that many. I was proud of myself, but you'll see that I ruined that pretty quickly. And I'll tell you why in a second. These are the books I bought at the festival. And then I also bought this bookmark and 2 copies of the sticker. Now, for those of you who don't know, it was my birthday yesterday. Nearly always falls on my birthday, this festival. And I got a coupon from Barnes & Noble saying, happy birthday, here's $5, which is a new thing they're doing this year apparently. So I was like, I know me, I'm not gonna want to go there later this week. I'm gonna be so tired. I'm gonna be so drained the rest of this week from talking to so many people and going so many places and just physically exerting myself. Oh wait, hold on, I have to show you guys something. My friend Deanna bought this for all of us who were there, who are in our book club. Look, isn't it cute? They're cats and it says book club. These is from Turtle Soup, if you guys follow them on Instagram. They are a TUCSON company. Long story short, I was like, let's call it Barnes & Noble after work. Let's just make it a book day, you know? It's books. And I'll buy a book. Well, did I buy a book? No, I did not. Plus, I wanted to renew my membership because I couldn't do it online because something weird happened. And a card I don't even have anymore, they tried to charge it, even though I went in through the app and I went in through the website to delete all of my old cards that weren't even there anymore. And the card that is on file for my membership isn't even in my payment methods. So I was like, what are you guys doing? So I had to physically go in to pay them to renew my membership. And I got my annual membership tote. I got green this year. And of course, I came out with 4 books. This is what happens when you give a bookworm with shopping difficulties birthday money. Firstly, I got a book I'm reading later this year, which I was going to buy anyway. I was going to buy it in June, closer to when I was actually going to read it in July. But it's out and I found it. So that is Trace Elements by Ada Palmer and Joe Walton, who are 2 fantasy and science fiction authors that I really like. And it is nonfiction musings and essays and conversations between the 2 of them about sci-fi and fantasy. I am really looking forward to this. They are both super smart women and they're very genre savvy. And I cannot wait to see what they are going to say about genre. And then I came out with The Fox and the Devil by Kiersten White. Kiersten White is an author that historically works better for me than for a lot of people. And this particular book was on sale. It is about okay, here's the tagline. An obsession with an immortal serial killer entangles a vampire hunter's daughter, who's Van Helsing, by the way, in the enthralling gothic fantasy from blah, blah, blah. So it's a revenge tale and it's vampires and it takes place in Victorian times and it sounds completely up my alley. Okay, the 3rd book I got is The Other Side of Midnight by Simone St. James. I'm trying to collect all of her backlist and I have this one either on audio or ebook. I think it's audio, but I don't have a physical copy. And all of these backlist paperbacks where her original catalog was published with different covers. All of these ones with these new covers to match her current books have a lower price than her newer fiction. So this was like $15, which is, you know, normally it'd be like $18.99 or something like that, or $17.99. So I went ahead and got it. And then the last book I got, I told myself I wouldn't buy this until I listened to the audiobook that I already own, but I couldn't resist it. I was like, let's be honest, Ashley, you're gonna love this book and you're gonna wanna buy it anyway, so just buy it now and save yourself the trouble. And that's The Murder at World's End by Ross Montgomery. The physical book of this is just very pretty. It's very classy. Look at those end papers. As far as I'm aware, this is a historical mystery that takes place in a country manor house, I think in England? Cornwall, yeah, Cornwall. And there was a comet and everyone thinks the world is about to end, so that propels the plot. Obviously the world didn't end, but they don't know that, and then there's a murder and they have to solve it. I think it's a locked room mystery, so I'm very excited. And that's my Barnes & Noble haul. These books. I think I did pretty well this weekend. I bought a lot of really good books and goodies, and I've done worse before at a festival weekend. Like I've gotten like up to here before just from festival books, and those are not on sale at all. They're full price. Actually, I got this one on sale because I bought it at Stax, and I have 10% off there. So that's my 2026 Tucson Festival of Books video. Oh, I forgot to say, I had a first for me in this channel, and that's I got recognized in public by somebody who watches these videos. So AZ Maynor, who regularly comments, hi. I think we were both equally nervous and weirded out by that interaction. Me, because I was like, I've never been recognized before. This is very strange. You, because, I don't know, somebody you only know in one context is suddenly in front of you, and you're like, ah! Anyway, that was weird. There's only like 400 of you that regularly watch. Like sometimes I'll get a video that does really well, like 2,000 views or something like that, but that's really super rare. Mostly it's like 350 to 500. The fact that somebody recognized me is although she did say that she found me originally because of a Tucson Festival of Books video, which makes sense because we both enjoy the festival. I hope that you guys enjoyed these videos. I know that I always forget to film stuff. I think the highlight is the author panels anyway, and I don't forget to do that. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, please leave me the man or woman. Actually, leave me the woman symbol. The symbol with the arrows, you know? Wait, no, is that the female symbol? This. Leave me this, please. This emoji. Just because I was so tickled by that unreal experience. Actually, when I texted the group chat what was happening, like I was live commenting on it, like if I had been tweeting, it would have been called live tweeting this experience, and they were all like egging me on to stop him and get up there and be like, shut up, guy. And when I told the group he just tried to get in on the signing, and I told them what he said, and my friend Sarah goes, is he a cartoon character? Is he a cartoon character? And I was like, no, he's very real. That symbol, please. And then I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, love you. Bye.